Welcome to today's episode of the Daily Coffee Pro Friends. Today on the podcast, we're following up from yesterday's episode of the podcast, and we're going to talk about specifically engineering a targeted annual net profit amount. And as we said in the last episode, I would like you to consider that rather than the industry kind of accepted amount of 3% net profit, in 2020, you should be considering how you can start transitioning to a 15 to 20% net profit margin annually. And the reason, as we said in the last episode, is because we are presented with a very unique moment in history where businesses and customers alike are all affected at the same time. And so we're going to focus on 4 specific things that you need to consider or get well versed at in order to start the process of engineering a 15% net profit annual targeted margin. So number 1, know your COGS. It really does surprise me when I speak with clients, and I'm fine with it, but it surprises me that customers don't know what their costs of goods are. So that's what COGS is, cost of goods. And that's very separate from your fixed costs, and we'll talk about that in a second. But in order for you to know where you're going, you need to understand what are all the different elements that make up how you're going to get there. And your cost of goods is a fundamental way to do that. What that requires you to do is take a look at every single one of your products, every single thing that you sell, and figure out what it costs you to either make or acquire that. So if you're buying a product and you're a wholesaler for that, the cost of goods, replace that for the idea of a landed cost. So how much is it for buying that product plus the shipping and the taxes that you pay for that? So assume that that's the price that it costs you to get it into your store. If you are selling a product that you manufacture or make, you're going to look at every element that's in that product that you can see with your eyes, and you are going to cost out every single piece of that. And understanding your cost of goods is an important part of understanding how you're going to price your product, and we'll talk about that in a second. But if you don't understand your cost of goods, you can't get there. What this means is you need to go through all of your invoices for all of your products and all of your raw products. Now, you're not just looking at the line item. You're not just looking at one carrot costs me X amount of dollars. You're going to consider that plus the tax that you pay to acquire that carrot. And in most places, there's no tax on raw materials, but there may be if you're talking about other things, plus the shipping costs to get it to you. So if you are pricing out the cost of goods for something, look at the total invoice and include that in there. So cost of goods, you've got to understand them. And if you don't understand them, go through the process of doing it. Remember, shifting to a new profit margin is a process, and it's going to take teamwork, and it's not going to be simple, but it will absolutely be worth it. The next thing that you need to understand is your fixed costs. So while the first thing we want you to focus on is the cost of goods, what does it cost to produce the product that you're actually going to sell? The next part, the fixed cost, is how much does it cost for you to run the business regardless of how many products you sell or don't sell. So that's things like your rent, it's things like your wages, it's your air conditioning and electricity costs and gas costs and insurance and all of the things that you pay for regardless of how much business you do. And getting an understanding of that will show you where there's fat and where you're running lean. So this is important because you can understand where you can start to cut the fat and where you are possibly wasting money. All right, so we've got our cost of goods and we've got our fixed costs. The next thing is we need to know where we're going. So now that we know where things are at with our cost of goods and our fixed costs, we need to know where we're going to aim towards. And we've decided that that is going to be somewhere between 15 and 20%. And remember, getting there is going to be a constant moving, kind of malleable process that may take you a couple of years to get there. And the further and further away that you move from your 3% net profit, the more you're going to see that the things that you're doing are actually landing where they need to land. Sometimes they won't. You'll cut the fat at somewhere that isn't actually working because it means that you're decreasing in sales, and that means that your fixed costs aren't being covered by the volume of sales that you're doing. So it's going to take some trial and error, but knowing where you're going is an important part of this equation. So we've covered what it costs to run the business right now. We know where we're going. The next thing that we need to do is to understand what's the framework that we're operating within. And this is really important. What do I mean by the framework? Now, the framework are the things like your values and what the limits are around your values. So, for example, if you have made it clear to your customers that your value statement is that we only ever source the best quality product, that's going to give you a framework to base what you do next and where you can cut the fat from your fixed costs and your cost of goods analysis. So if you have gone out there and told all of your customers that we only have the best quality products, your value statement is going to influence how you can alter your costs of goods to increase your profit margins. I hope that makes sense right there. I'll say that again. If you are offering a value statement to your customers that you only have the best quality products, that means that all the raw materials that go into making the product that goes to your customer has to be the best quality that you can get. And you have to deliver on that value statement, because that kind of a value statement is all about integrity. And customers who expect that know how to taste the difference. So if that's the case, you can't cut the fat in your cost of goods by buying cheaper raw materials. You're going to have to find ways in other places to decrease your costs so that you can increase your profit margins. Another example is we have the best quality customer service. Now, if your value statement says the best quality customer service, you have to find a way to run a business that makes sure that your customers feel very attended to. So cutting your fixed costs by reducing your staff and your labor costs may not be an effective way to make sure that you meet your value statement with your customers. However, I will say that we do have a sponsor coming onto the podcast that may be able to help you with that in the future, because there are ways that you can have better quality customer service without cutting your staff and yet increase your profitability. But we will talk about that at a later date. So understanding having a clear understanding of your value statement is going to influence the way that you can and cannot increase your profitability and make your way towards a 15% net profit, annual net profit margin for your business. And so you'll take a look at all of those 4 things that we've laid out. And I promise you, by going through the process of laying out all of those things and just going through the analysis and saying, oh, when I look at all the pieces kind of all together, it's become more obvious to me where I can save money and where I have to spend more money. So if you're able, if you're able, and I really encourage you to do this, if you're able to put those things in front of you and then discuss that with your team, talk about what you found, help your staff understand what your cogs are, help them understand how much it costs you to run the business. I bet you'll see a couple of effects. I bet you'll start to see that your staff work more efficiently. I bet you'll start to see that your customers want to meet your value statements, and you'll start to get a better understanding of where you have room to move so that you can cut the fat in some places and you can, with more confidence, understand why it's necessary to increase your prices. So increasing your profitability is going to be a dance between increasing your prices and helping your customers understand why you need to do that, as well as reducing your costs without reducing the quality that you're giving your customers, and also meeting the value statements within the limits of where they sit. I hope that that's been really helpful. If you have any questions about this, put them in the comment section below. And I would suggest that if you've never considered joining one of our mastermind groups, either for roasting or for business ownership, this is the kind of stuff we discuss in detail in our group coaching, our mastermind group coaching. And it is so successful. Businesses are seeing such great success with this. Peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day.